Photography Daily is a Loading Zone production.
I know I've taken you to the Isle of Wight on the south coast of England before. It's one of my favourite places in the United Kingdom. But we've never spent a retreat here before, have we? A retreat, Neil? Have you mentioned one of those before? What do you possibly mean? Well, since you ask, a whole week dedicated to making photographs, not needing any excuses when it comes to saying, I'm just popping out to take a couple of pictures. I might be some time. Bit of a Captain Oates reference, probably an unfortunate one, but that's what this episode's all about. We're on the Photography Daily Photo Retreat, the first one that we've done, hopefully the first of a few and not the last. Imagine a yoga retreat, but with far less downward dog. And I'm joined by 5 other photo walkers. Anna McCarthy, who is a full-time super documentary and portrait photographer. I love her portrait work in particular, in the way that she really does research all her subjects. It doesn't matter if they're famous or just like you and me, maybe not so famous. But she goes the what's the phrase? That extra mile to find out what makes them tick, so that it helps her when she's making their portraits. Alan Beach on the beach, as we always say, which he's probably fed up with us saying, who makes these spectacular landscape images. I think I've eulogised about his low lighthouse images before at Burnham-on-Sea, which is close to where he lives. He's very lucky. He lives in a wonderful part of the world. Then we have Andrea Gilpin, who makes these superb botanical pictures. Much more than that, though. It's sort of a whole feeling about the photographs that she makes in and of nature. So Andrea's with us. Flowers and gardens and rustic scenes. That really is her speciality. Paul Hudson, who is a photographer and a writer. And he's interested in what he describes as the human condition. The writing, the work on his website. I will leave a link today so you can go and see Paul's work. So it's particularly exciting to have a writer with us. And Lynn Fraser, who is an archaeologist living and working in the Highlands of Scotland. You don't get a much finer canvas, do you? Probably not. I always tease Lynn that she's living on a film set of natural beauty, but it's absolutely true. She makes some superb travel images, and of course, just as with everybody else, I'll link to her website so that you can follow her work as well. And actually, there's a 6th photo walker, and that is you. You may not necessarily physically be with us, but by the power of sound, you are. Just make sure you take your boots off at the door each night. So we have all these varied photographic experiences, and we're all in one house together for the best part of a week. There must be a collective noun for a group of photographers. What would it be? Would it be a lens? Would it be a bouquet? A bokeh? I can never say that word. A bokeh of photographers. I don't know, a focus, that's the best way, a best word, a focus of photographers. So we're all in this one house together, visiting places on the island to photograph, trying some new picture making challenges, just breathing pictures. It's not really a photo tour as such, because there are, without a doubt, and I look towards Lynn particularly now, when I think there are probably far nicer backdrops. Sorry, people on the Isle of Wight. What, Neil? Will have you thrown off? No, I mean, as in, these fantastic valleys and, it has its cliffs here, that's true. But you know what I mean, the lochs and the beauty that Lynn often visits on the Isle of Skye in particular. No, it's more about just being able to live and breathe and talk pictures unashamedly for a whole week. There's no guest as such this week, as our photo walkers, as you've just heard there, have such amazing backgrounds. I thought you might like to hear really from and about each of them. You'll be hearing something we've started doing on the Moor Show at the weekend. You'll be hearing about their 5 things they love about photography. So, welcome to the Isle of Wight. for the first photographic retreat. Is it your turn to get the coffees in?
Today on the Photowalk.
I've taken the time to slow down and just to immerse myself in the surroundings that I'm in before I start photographing. And then that's why my mind starts to wander. I start to see things that I wouldn't have normally seen.
Stories of life told by photographers. And today more of your stories about what photography means to you, why you make pictures, what you make them about, how your camera helps you to see the world. It's a very different type of photography show, made out in the wilds on a walk. Me with my camera, you with yours, earbuds in and a mailbag of letters. Plus, of course, our guests. Usually, these parts I'm in the warmth of the studio, just linking everything together. But everything this week, everything, including our intros and outros and all those words they use in radio and podcasting, all recorded out on our Photowalk Retreat. So slightly different this week. We're on an island called the Isle of Wight, yes, for the first photography retreat. And I really hope there'll be more to come. Lots of different places in the country, maybe the world, to go and explore. So hopefully you'll be joining us on one of these at some stage. We're still walking today, and of course, we have, I say of course, and we have some of your letters as well. And we're supported, as always, on this by our wonderful friends and people at mpb.com. Here's a question for you. Is there a piece of camera kit in a cupboard, in one of those camera bags you've not looked in for a while, or you've tucked into a drawer, a lens, a flash, a camera that you haven't used lately? For some reason you're holding on to it. I might just need that. But you don't know why, or you'd forgotten perhaps you even had it. Well, now is the time to turn that old kit into cash. If you are in the US, Europe or the UK and you can spare a few moments, because that's all it takes, have a look in those drawers and see if there's anything you think, I haven't used that for a while, perhaps I could trade that in at mpb.com. Sell it. You'll end up with the cash that you can either pocket or you can trade it on the site for kits that you'd much rather have instead. Go to mpb.com. Right. Shall we walk then? Yes. Coffee and Garibaldi is packed. Check. Slight addition to that. Everybody who came on or is on the photographic retreat, our photography daily retreat, I put some Garibaldis in their room. Every single packet went. I think they're a success. Boots on and laced, check. Warm walking, now I'm having a bit of a discussion with those that are on the retreat about whether I should call them pants or trousers. They're saying trousers. Check. Spare batteries, check. Fillmore cards, check. Earbuds in, check. Lens caps off. Let's walk. You're going to hear a lot of waves today. It's I find being next, if I could live anywhere, I would just choose somewhere by the sea. There's something about the sound of gulls. I'm sure if you live by the sea, you'll be saying, Neil, the sound of gulls is not exactly the experience that you necessarily need to be uprooting and shifting to the coast for. But I find that the sound of gulls, certainly the lapping of waves as you can hear in the background, really very, very therapeutic. I was just talking to a man a moment ago who said he takes a swim in this every single day. And we've talked about this on the podcast before when the show came from Brighton. Do you remember the two swimmers that we chatted to that said it's great for mental health? Cold, but that's part of the benefits apparently. So you need a few facts about the Isle of Wight. Well, I'm in Shanklin at the moment, which is the last stop on the Island Line. The Island Line is important because that's one of the photographic challenges. We're riding on the London Underground trains that I don't know whether they're gifted. I think they're gifted or bought for a very nominal amount of money, something like £1, and they run on the Isle of Wight. It's not a particularly long train line, but it does run from Ryde Pier all the way through to Shanklin. So it's a modest line. But that's what we've used to get, that's our story really, the island line, and I've set some photo challenges within it. Probably I'll tell you a bit more about those photo challenges that our photo walkers have been doing. And you, of course, if you've decided to join in with the challenge, you might like to try the challenge. It's a 5 things challenge. But a few facts about the Isle of Wight. Now, some of these are not necessarily true. I love a show called, it's all about truths or lies. And I quite like a game like this. So most of these are true. A couple of them a little bit far-fetched, kind of based on truth, but not entirely true. It has the oldest pier. We talked about the pier just a moment ago. The oldest pier in the UK or Britain. And Queen Victoria, who liked to holiday here on this island, she actually on that pier invented the penny slot machine. Which is a bit strange, isn't it? Inventing a penny slot machine that bears your face as people use the machine. But why not? It's the most haunted island on planet Earth. Dinosaur hunters come from around the world here because, they come to see the Gala raptor, which is the size of a squirrel. And it's the last known raptor like it of its kind. I'm not quite sure how dangerous they are, but you probably wouldn't want to get into a fight with one. It's the sunniest place in the UK and actually has a climate that's sunnier than some parts of Spain. Everyone here is called John. It's the smallest county when the tide is in. And for extra points, you can tell me what the answer is when the tide is out. There's 140,000 people, near enough, who live on this island. And 2 million people, though, who visit every single year. I would imagine that's probably about 6 million now, isn't it, in these times, now that nobody gets on that. What's that thing called? Plane, those things that used to fly through the air that took those things called tourists. Oh, I don't know that word either. It has Britain's oldest phone box. And there is actually you get music festivals, of course, everywhere, but you don't get anywhere else something called the Garlic Festival. And this place has it. So there we go. Which ones were true? Which ones weren't exactly the truth, but based actually on truth? So Isle of Wight it is, and we'll start with a couple of we'll start with one letter. The letters are important as always. It wouldn't be a photo walk, would it, without a letter? So we'll start with Barnabas from Slovakia land, who's written in with a really, really handy feature. It's a real hidden camera gem feature. Hello, Neil. As recording audio appears as a subject from time to time in the podcast to go with the pictures, maybe you'll remember an earlier email where I wished the Fujifilm cameras still had the option to record audio. And audio only, that is, to accompany the photographs, as did my very first digital camera, which just so happened to be a Fujifilm flavoured one. Well, I said flavoured, Barnabas didn't. And guess what? I found out by total coincidence that Fujifilm cameras still record audio only. I watched a YouTube video in which the person was talking of useless features on Fujifilm cameras. One of them being the possibility of recording audio with your photos. Obviously, this YouTuber didn't get the point, but I did realise that I don't need my mobile phone to make notes about pictures or record the sounds of where I'm photographing, since I can record audio directly to my memory card thanks to this function. You see, I didn't realise that still existed. Now, I haven't checked up on this one, so it could end up being one of those dubious facts. But I trust Barnabas, and if Barnabas says it's true, it is true. What a really handy feature. Now, Paul, who's on this retreat, who's the writer and the photographer, he was having trouble the other day recording the names of the portrait subjects that he'd been making. It was, who was that? Was that Daphne? And John. Remember, everybody's called John. You can be called what you like if you're not a male. Otherwise, you have to be called John. So it's easy, that bit. But he was struggling with that. Of course, if it had he has a very fine collection of Leica cameras. But if it had had a Fujifilm camera, then he could have recorded their names just after he made the picture. But also, it's quite handy if you want to do, now we're doing as one of our challenges, if you want to record the audio, the sound of your photograph. Barnabas says, well, I hope they never remove it, because I do like this option very much and I plan to use it in the future as well. I've created a short video, 56 seconds to be precise, with a few still images of small creeks, water that is, and their sounds in the background. I uploaded it to YouTube. The quality's been slightly decreased, but you get the idea. Anyway, here's the link. Now, I've got the link. I'll put it on the show page today so you can see exactly how Barnabas is using this feature on his Fujifilm camera. Oh, that proves that it works. Of course it does. Should have thought about that bit. So it's a great feature. You could use it, I suppose, for what Paul really would benefit from, being able to note down the names of the people that he's photographing, or you could use it for Barnabas and our photo walkers with their challenge, where you have to show the sound of a still image. As always, says Barnabas, thank you for your work. The podcast has changed my photographic journey and growth and my life. Well, you know what I'm like. I shiver a little bit uncomfortably there, because that's far too much like flattery, but I'll take it and say thank you very much. Thanks, Barnabas. Really appreciate that. Right. Shall we do our first of the 5 things feature? Now on Patreon we have a new feature called 5 Things on a Saturday. Now I'm hoping that it will be tomorrow that you hear this show, but we are in a land that it's there's a slower pace of life here, he says, trying not to sound too exasperated, and So the upload speed isn't great. I'm hoping that we'll get the Patreon show up for you tomorrow for those that are patrons. If I haven't, apologies. I promise it will be there either Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning, first thing. Promise. Promise, Neil? Yes, promise. But the Patreon 5 Things is about, we asked those who are members about the things they love about photography. It's one of the features on the More Show now. Now, it doesn't have to be all things that you love. It can be things that about photography that have impacted you. Perhaps something that gives you the chance to travel. I mean, photography is a great enabler, as we often discuss, and you'll no doubt hear within this show again today. But so it could be something that photography allows you to do. It could be something that photography has brought to you that's been quite a surprise in your life. You kind of get the idea. It's 5 things. 5 things you love about photography. And we're going to start with Paul Hudson, who is a writer and photographer, since I mentioned him just a short while ago. And we recorded Paul's 5 Things just a couple of days ago at this beautiful place. You'll see the pictures on the show page today. A place called Alum Bay, which is right by the Needles, which is an iconic site on the Isle of Wight. Approximately 70 million years ago, the seabed, I've obviously written this out, I didn't know this, I'm not a geologist, but I did some research for you. The seabed rose, was eroded, then sank beneath the sea again. The new sea was shallow and it laid down a series of sands and clays. Then 10 million years later, give or take, movement in the bedrock caused these sediments to be pushed nearly vertically to form these just incredible multicolored cliffs that are still visible today. They're extraordinary, and you'll see them on the show page. Yes, we're on a windswept Alum Bay with all these beautiful cliffs behind us, and I was talking to Paul about the 5 things that he loves about photography.
So probably top of the list there, Neil, would be the transience of life. So about preserving those special fleeting moments that zip by. And I think it started for me years and years ago when my father got a job. He used to work in Suffolk and he took a job up in Immingham in northern Lincolnshire, and I went from a really idyllic childhood with heathland to play on into quite an industrial fishing area that wasn't so pleasant. But amidst all that gloom, he offered to take me to a works Christmas party, and for weeks I looked forward to that party. And then all of a sudden the party arrived. I had a massive fun, which seemed like for a few moments, and it was over. And I really got the concept of how transient moments like that are. And then, of course, later on, as photography came into my life, how it's so useful for preserving those fleeting, enjoyable, special moments. The second thing I love about photography is I've always been massively into history. Loved it at school, loved it ever since. And I think we're all experiencing history with what's happening in politics, what's happening in our country. And actually, because we're living through it, surely we ought to be recording it and trying to illustrate how we feel about what's happening to us through photography. And so I think it's an ideal medium for doing that, and it's my second most important aspect of everything I do in photography. The third thing, describe and explain. So I love that quote by, I think it's John Sarkowski, and I've probably pronounced his name slightly wrong, but where he says that photographs describe everything but explain nothing. And again, since my school days, I've really been interested in writing. So I use photography to describe, and I use writing to explain. And somehow I feel I marry them together in a way that really pleases me and hopefully pleases other people. Fourthly, materials and the phenomena. So, isn't light an amazing thing, this electromagnetic wave and the electromagnetic spectrum and all the things that are associated around light, like the Enlightenment and good and dark and all those kind of things. So I am naturally interested in light, and then that aspect of photons of light falling on a film and passing through glass, which is man-made, and then falling onto silver halide and creating an image. So in the film days, it just so appealed to me. And finally, I would say, I don't know why, but I really do love paper. So to be able to print on some really beautiful papers and create silver halide images in various tones of black and white was something special.
Do you not think that you would feel the same if you were just turning out the ones and zeros, as they digitally say?
No. When it's finally, I print, as we've talked about, on a digital printer with pigmented ink, and I do really enjoy the prints that come from that, but there's that magic is missing a little bit in terms of how it was formed. And lastly, and maybe I shouldn't confess to this, but I really like the instruments themselves.
Oh, kit.
Gear.
Oh, gear.
So to have a mechanical watch that self-winds, or to have some camera that when you trip the shutter sounds like clockwork, I do like that. And of course, in the original film days, I had a number of cameras that felt like it was a precision instrument in your hand, and you were in charge of it, and you were able to create magical moments using such an instrument. It was a total pleasure.
So you have cameras where you could effectively shoot absolutely silent, and of course you hear so many photographers eulogise about the advantage of having that sort of silent approach to their photography, and you do actually make pictures of people, so there would clearly be an advantage to shooting with a silent shutter. But I would imagine you're much like me, that you would turn the sound back on.
Yes, indeed, and I often do. It's like a haptic feedback somehow, and it just confirms to you that the shutter speed was at the right setting, and that you've actually taken the picture, and that noise kind of symbolises the moment you've captured it, and seals and preserves that special moment for in time forever.
I've moved from Shanklin to Sandown. Sorry, Neil, it sounds the same as Shanklin. You're joking, aren't you? It has a completely different accent. I'm 2 stops down the line. Listen to the sea. That's Sandown Sea, that is. That was Paul Hudson a moment ago with his 5 things, and that's a feature of our Saturday show on the Patreon channel, the 5 things feature. There'll be a diary piece this week. I'm slightly concerned, as I said before, about being able to upload, because well, can I just say that some people, it's one of the beautiful benefits of living on the Isle of Wight is that everything slows down just a tad, and with that, the upload speed for the podcast. Here's one from Phil Koretz, who is in Seattle land, where everything is much, much faster, I'm sure. Hello, Neil. Great seeing you and the gang on the monthly Zoom. Oh, Phil, of course, is one of our patrons, and we have our monthly Zoom, don't we? As a frequent podcast listener, first-time caller, it was nice to put a face with a voice. As Phil says, you asked me to send photo. Oh yes, we were talking about photo running, not just photo walks. We talked about photo cycles, didn't we, with Nils a couple of weeks ago, and photo running. You asked me to send photo running pictures when I mentioned the concept. Please find shots attached for this week. Photo running turns out to be a losing strategy for getting anywhere quickly or for inconspicuous street photography. But great for my sanity, and that's the main thing, isn't it? It's a reason to get into the fresh air, gain a new appreciation for this beautiful city along routes that I've been jogging for years. Maybe they'll turn photo running into an Olympic sport one day. Well, I'm not sure. Can you imagine that, running along with your camera, having to a sort of pentathlon of photo sports? As for kit, my secret, well, it's a Ziploc bag for weather sealing my camera and ruining its pin-sharp optics. Everything's perfect, but if only they sold Garibaldis here. Well, you can't have everything. Did they not sell Garibaldis in Seattle? Really? Also, your interview with Niels Armelinks and his mountaintop images, an absolute inspiration. That was episode 279, in case you're wondering. If you haven't heard it, it's this extraordinary story about, well, his name is Niels, from Belgium land, who's now living in the Lake District. Officially, I suppose, with the lingo of the show, Lake District land, and he makes these epic can I use the word epic? I can. There was a piece in the Facebook group the other day that said epic is completely overused, so but I can use it for this. These epic cycle rides, mountainous cycle rides, and it's quite the human story, so I'll let you go to episode 279 to hear that. Walking around with a camera, says Phil, makes me appreciate its nuances and see better. It's energizing to hear how other photographers like Niels are motivated by the same sense of wonder and adventure. All the best from Phil in Seattle. So there are some pictures today on the show page to show that photo running can really work. Actually, if you do photo running, send me your pictures, please. 2,000 pixels on the wide side, and send them to studio@photographydaily.show. So let's take another one of our 5 things I love about photography. A running theme. Do you see what I did there? This is Lynn Fraser talking about the 5 things that she loves about photography.
The first thing that I really love about photography is the freedom that it's brought into my life. It's given me freedom to go where I want, do what I want. It's my time. And I just enjoy that so much. It gets me away from everyday life, from the children, my husband, work.
It's exploration then, isn't it? It's exploration that you otherwise would not have, dared is the wrong word, but otherwise not perhaps thought about doing.
Yes, I would agree with that, because when you initially asked us to think about the 5 things that we love about photography, and freedom popped into my mind, and it was what I've just said, the freedom to go where I want. But then I started to actually think about it a bit more deeply, and it's actually brought me freedom of thought. It's freed me up in some ways to think differently from the way that I'd normally think about it. And I think that's got something to do with some of the courses that I've taken.
So there's I know mindfulness, some people roll their eyes at mindfulness, I know, but that's wrapped up, and you might be about to say, no, that's my 3rd or 4th thing, but it is wrapped up in mindfulness, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I've taken the time to slow down and just to immerse myself in the surroundings that I'm in before I start photographing. And then that's why my mind starts to wander. I start to see things that I wouldn't have normally seen, and then I start to think about them in different ways. And you're right, it is a sort of exploration, and it's very liberating. It's essentially throwing the rule book away and you just do what you want. I find that incredibly liberating.
Absolutely.
That's my freedom.
Yeah.
The second thing that I really enjoy about photography is the flexibility. You can really do it any time you want. I quite often do it first thing in the morning when I'm walking the dog, whether it's just with my phone. I don't always have my camera with me, but I just see something, a lovely sunrise, or it's raining and the flowers are looking particularly lovely with water drops on them.
For some people, of course, they would want to take tripods out, and I can understand. I've been watching Alan with his tripod and really getting involved in the bulb setting and making sure he gets these cotton wool waves. But for you, that's not what you do, is it?
No, I don't have a set thing that I do. I just do what my mood takes me to do on any particular day. And it was very interesting, actually, on a recent episode when you played something that Thomas Heaton said, and he was saying how he doesn't think he has a style, and he looks at his Instagram feed and it's quite eclectic, and that's, I feel that's me as well. I don't have a style, I just shoot what the mood takes me. And I did get a bit hung up a couple of years ago trying to find my voice until I realised that my voice is that eclectic mix, because that's me. I flip-flop from one thing to another. Freedom, whatever takes my interest at any particular time. The third thing that I really love and enjoy about photography is fascination. I've chosen that word because through photography I've been much more fascinated by the world around me, and it's really opened my eyes to what I previously missed. And again, I think that comes back to the mindfulness and that I've slowed down and I'm much more aware of what's around me now, whether it's something quite small like an insect or just a spark of light will catch my eye, and I'll just stop and I'll look at it, and then you become fascinated about how the light plays across a leaf, or how the grass is moving, or how an insect is moving and how a blade of grass bends with the insect. And I really enjoy that.
So to start to, and I'm going to be very cautious here because I know Discover still already exists, but it's a discovery thing, isn't it? All the time.
Yes, it is constantly discovering, and as you know, I've done a fair few workshops with Paul Sanders now, and it has opened my eyes and different ways of thinking, different ways of seeing. The fourth thing that I really enjoy about photography is that state of flow that you get into when you're out photographing, and I've lost hours photographing one thing or moving maybe 1 meter, and it comes back to the fascination that I get fascinated by something and I just stay there and I drift, and then I emerge a couple of hours later thinking, oh, I'm still here and 2 hours have passed. But I think Nils Amerlinck's nailed it when he said he can slow down time with photography, and that is exactly it. Time slows down, or in fact stops, because you're completely unaware of anything else happening around you, and that's fabulous because then your mind completely switches off from everyday problems. You just get lost.
So it's probably not the sort of thing where you think, right, Lynn, I can go off and spend the next hour during lunch hour doing this, or can you? Although you'd much rather say, right, I haven't got any plans today. If I'm an hour, fine. If I'm 3, fine. If I'm 5, who cares?
Yes, I much prefer just having a bit of time. I find it very difficult to be constrained within an hour, because then that's putting pressure on myself to do something in that hour, whereas if I just go off for a morning, I can drift along a river and then just find a nice little patch that I like and then stay there for however long without having to look at my watch. And the fifth thing that I really love about photography is the friendship that it's brought me. And I've been on several photo trips since 2014, and I've made some fantastic friends in that time. And not just, I don't know if physical is the right word, but I've made virtual friends as well in the last couple of years, especially through Photography Daily, actually. I chat with quite a few people online, and it's fabulous. It's just opened up a whole new world for me.
I think of many of those that I talk with who are not just patrons of the show, but also those that listen and contribute, send in pictures and letters, and you are probably the most travelled in terms of, not necessarily on photo assignments, but in terms of making sure that you get out there and you do workshops and you meet other photographers and you have experience. And not just workshops, you go to mindfulness events and things as well, don't you?
Yes, it's really important for me to get out and to do that.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm quite well travelled in terms of the photo trips, but that's because my husband doesn't actually like to travel. So photography has given me the means to travel. So I go on photo trips, I go to the countries I want to visit. I'm going with like-minded people. And as Nicky Heppenstall said, there's no problem with conversation because you've got common ground to start with, and it's actually been quite easy to do that. I'd find it very difficult probably going on any other kind of trip, having to think, how am I going to make conversation with people?
What would happen now if your husband said, I've been thinking about this thing, I'd rather like to travel now?
That's a loaded question, Neil.
You don't feel you need to answer that one, just in case he's listening.
There are certain places he wouldn't go with me, so we have come to an agreement that there are some places he would like to travel to, so I have deigned to go with him and leave my camera at home.
Diplomatic. The light is falling. Shall we go?
Yes. Yeah.
Lynn Fraser with her 5 things. It is the Photowalk. Well, I'm hoping it's the Friday Photowalk, but of course, as you heard me say last week, my biggest concern is with being able to get this uploaded. Not that it won't be done in time. No, that for the first time ever, being away from base and relying upon different Wi-Fi, 4G, 5G, 3G, 2P, whatever, to try and get the podcast uploaded. But, if you're hearing this on the right day, whoa, it worked. So we're on the Photowalk Retreat in the Isle of Wight. Each day we've been taking some walks, working on a series of what I can describe as flexible challenges, insofar that some people feel more comfortable making some kinds of photographs than others, and that's okay because we have such different styles of photographers with us. But since the number 5, with 5 things I love about photography as a sort of sub-theme of the show this week, the photo challenge whilst walking for our days was a challenge of 5 too. Does that make sense? 5 TOO, yes. 5 things, quite open subjects or themes, if you will. They were leading lines, better days, a stranger. We also made a side project. We made portraits of each other, so that was kind of a bit interchangeable. The sound of a picture, which is where we made still pictures, but then we recorded the sound to go with them. That's a bit of a work in progress, actually, as I make this show, so we may not actually be able to play those back, but over the next couple of weeks I will. And an opening. So you'll see not all of them, because there are quite a few. We took a lot of pictures over the last few days, but you'll see a fair representation of those themes and what people did, what our photo walkers did on the show page. So you have to go to the show page today to see what they did. On that note, please keep sending in your photo stories, the places you've been, the places you're walking, or of course running or cycling, as your photo walks all take different methods. So please keep sending in your walks, your pictures from your walks to studio@photographydaily.show, studio@photographydaily.show. 2,000 pixels on the long side, and it was mentioned to me by Anna, who is on the Photowalk Retreat this week, that I never say 72 DPI. And I've always said, well, I don't want to give people too many things to do, otherwise they won't bother. And everybody said, yes, they will. 72 DPI, please mention it. So I've mentioned it. 2,000 pixels wide side, 72 DPI. Thanks very much. But of course, also, if you just want to send in some thoughts about photography, completely welcome. It's wonderful to receive your thoughts, your feelings about this thing that we do, this thing that we love. So please send those as well to studio@photographydaily.show. So we had our challenges. Yes, leading lines, better days. Did I say better days just now? Better days. better days. So that could be, I don't know, a rumble tumble old house, or it could be, somebody said, it could be you, Neil. Maybe it is a stranger, the sound of a picture and an opening. And here are a few examples of our photographers setting about their challenges. We're going to start with Paul, our writer and photographer on the beach at Bembridge, making portraits of strangers. Then he was photographing our Alan, who is, he's a landscape photographer. He's not so used to portrait making, or indeed, as you'll hear, being in portraits. But then you'll hear some surf with Alan in his happier place, experimenting with shutter speeds, softening the sea's movement on the iconic Alum Beach. Alum, that is, not Alan. And then in the fourth clip, Lynn Fraser is standing in the fresh winds, and I tell you, it was blowing, we call it blowing a hoolie in our house. It was blowing a hoolie in the Needles, where the Needles are fierce rocks that jut out into the sea on the western part of the island, protected by a lighthouse that was one of the last to be staffed by a real lighthouse keeper until only a modest number of years ago, actually. And I think I'm right in saying, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, but I'm pretty sure in saying that was the last lighthouse to be staffed, somebody on that lighthouse platform. Neil, we're going to fact check you. Yes, please do. And also, Lynn explains what she looks for as she makes intentional camera movement, or ICM shots, because that's what she was doing high above the Needles. It's something that she's been experimenting with in her photography of late. So let's hear just a few moments from the week as we set about our photography together.
Yeah.
Tracy with an E, Tracey, because she gets a bit funny if you spell it wrong, you know.
Yeah, she gets narky.
Right. Do you want to just come forward, Vian? That's it. No, Tracy.
Right.
That's it there.
Right.
That's perfect. And just relax. Right. And I won't get. I'll come in at about this distance here.
Right.
And what I'm trying to do is get that sort of blank seascape behind you, because that's just perfect. And I'm just going to come into about there. That's perfect. Now look down at the floor, both of you, if you would, for a moment. What I'm going to get you to do, I'm going to count to 3, and I just want you to look up and look straight in that lens. Okay, that'd be lovely. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Fabulous. And one more right in the lens. Lovely. I'm just going to do one more a little closer to take out that rock behind you, which is a bit distracting, and I'll focus on Tracy's eyes. There, hold it there. All right, you ready? Look down at the floor.
Yeah.
And come up and look at me one more time. Now. Thank you so much. That's really kind.
My pleasure. Gosh.
So there, I just locked that with a blank sky.
Yeah, that's
And nice that you're okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, lovely.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
no problem.
You're very welcome.
Good to meet you.
Yeah,
Cheers.
have a good time. Yeah, nice to meet you guys. All right, bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
How does that feel, Alan, as a photographer, having your portrait made?
Slightly weird, but okay, because I feel like I've, over the last couple of days, got to know you. So it's
Is
okay.
it the same thing then? Because you said you need to know somebody to be able to take a picture of them, and it's almost like it's the same that you need to know them to have them make a picture of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What were you looking for there, Paul, as you were making the portrait? You look like you've...
I was kind of looking for a certain look, which is difficult. I find you have to go through several frames to get something, and I'm going to just continue that these trees are absolutely fabulous, but they can be quite distracting in terms of if you're trying to photograph the person.
We're trying to explain the trees. We've got these sort of weaving trees, which are fantastic, stripped of their bark, just left with olive greens. But that's what you've used to try and... The shape of these trees is what you've used to frame him.
Yes, indeed. As you can see, Neil, down the side, each side, I've held it in with the trees. I brought something coming out the side, which I don't think I particularly like that now, looking at it. This one is perhaps a bit better, but I may need to change that slightly.
It's a very serious looking Alan,
He is
actually. You
looking
did say to him, don't smile.
I didn't say don't smile. I said you're smiling.
You
yeah,
effectively
but
told him off for smiling.
He took that as a negative. But
Do you think people would, as you were making portraits on the street, if you said,
I think if you say to somebody, and that's probably a mistake of me just saying that actually, thinking about it, I photograph people. I remember there was a lovely girl in Halifax who was a charity worker, and she was all bubbly and and effusive and dancing around, and I said, just hold it still, don't smile. And that was the worst thing I could have said, because she went all serious and that wasn't her. She was a bubbly sort of person. I quickly realised my mistake, and then we started again, and it worked out fine. But you kind of have to feel your way into things, don't you, with people that you've only just met. I mean, I've known now in a couple of days myself.
take me through what settings you're doing?
So I've got a 6-stop filter on, a polarizer, and I've got it in bulb mode, f11, and I'm just experimenting with sort of 5-6 seconds, and I'm trying to get it just as the water's going down, so I get those sort of lines going out. I don't know if it'll work. I've just seen other people do it.
Not here today, you haven't.
No. So you can see some sort of lines there. So
What they call the cotton wool effect, or
yeah, I guess, yeah. Oh, let's see those sort of cross sort of lines there. That's the sort of thing I've seen other people do, and I'm trying to see the.
yeah. Lynn's trying some ICM, intentional camera movement, but not with the most inspiring sky, really. Well, what do you think? You're the one who's making the picture.
I just like the colours.
I do like the colours. Are there enough colours?
Well, there are several shades of blue, which is what I'm seeing, and looking at with the flashes of light coming through. So I've given it a go. It's just a very gentle scene
It is.
that requires gentle treatment, I think.
You said just now you might need a filter.
Yes.
Why would that be?
I'm just not getting a slow enough shutter speed. Although the light's dropping, it's still actually quite bright. So I'm up at f16 on ISO 100, but I'm only getting 1/8 of a second. I could really do with half a second, I think, to get the nice blurry motion.
So is that the recipe? Recipe for intentional camera movement is what?
I usually find about half a second works, so I just then play with aperture and ISO to get round about the half second mark.
So as the sun starts to set, it's not so much sun, but the light starts to set now over the Needles and the western part of the Isle of Wight, that's where we are. You'd be waiting here for another, 15-20 minutes, wouldn't you, to try and get that?
Yes, probably without a filter.
Yeah.
But if I had a filter, I could slow the shutter speed down now, which is why it's quite good to do ICM on an overcast day in woodland or something like that. You can get the slow shutter speed without using a filter.
Some of our picture-making moments from the week. Right, letters, because I still wanted to hear your thoughts this week as we make our photo walk together. As I say, keep sending them in, because it's wonderful to read what you've been up to of late with your photo making. God, I'll tell you what I found out this week. I need to do a lot more walking. I'm walking uphill. The hills, the terrain in the Isle of Wight. It's a freak of nature. It only ever seems to go up. None of the hills seem to go down. I have to stop for a moment. Oh, a wonderful view. I haven't taken so many pictures myself on this photo walk. I have made some during the week. Oh, quite a few actually, together with my photo walk chums. And they'll be on the show page as well. So letters, yes. One from Andrew Hardacre. Now, this one has been in the inbox for a while now, but it was a letter that dealt with a myriad of subjects that we received many thoughts and letters on. The physicality of photography and how that can change with time, and also mental health. Thank you, Neil, says Andrew, for reading my thoughts on the show from time to time. It does feel quite strange hearing you say my words from 6,000 miles away. Oh, I don't know, Andrew. I always think of you as just round the corner. The beauty of podcasting. I do think, says Andrew, as I age, I've reached a point as a photographer where perhaps my expectations are changing. There's an awareness that in a few years' time, maybe I won't be able to carry even the reduced kit that I carry, looking for wildlife in 30 plus degrees Celsius and 90% relative humidity. Listen, Andrew, I'm not sure that even the finest athletes would feel comfortable lugging some of the stuff that I've seen or talked with you about, lugging that up and down hills. I really don't. The body, he says, no longer wants to scramble up the rocks, and the knees complain when I want to take low-angle shots. My balance isn't great after a fall 2 or 3 years ago, inner ear problems, so satisfaction metrics change and accommodate the realism of what I can do, even if the mind still bemoans the shot I might have attempted a while back. One of the reasons for returning to street photography and using my rangefinders to make my pictures now in Hong Kong is that it's physically less, but mentally equally demanding. You see the world differently as a photographer. It takes me much longer to get anywhere because every single step is a step towards a potential photograph. And that's the amazing thing, isn't it, about working on the street and observing people. And I found that actually this week, because usually, of course, you know me, I'm out in the wilds, away from, and that's where I am at the moment. I'm at the top of a hill. Can you hear the wind? You might hear it. If I turn to the wind, there you go. There's the wind. Oh, it's cold. Still going uphill. Stop moaning. So I found that the beauty of street photography and getting out there and I tell you what, making pictures of a stranger, I found that quite a challenge. I've done it before, but it was quite making a portrait of a stranger. Again, please make sure you go to the show page today to see that. Then he says there's the mental health aspect of photography. I've battled my mind over the years. I've worked and I've played much too hard, and eventually it catches up with you. It did with me in different ways, 2004 and 6 and 11, and I'm not sure where I am at the moment, but escape is always grab a camera and head out. Just to break away from Andrew's words for a moment, again, sorry Andrew, we were talking about brand loyalty on the show, and how for some people, it's almost a religion. I've heard it referred to as, I think you'll like this phrase, footballification. Footballification, Neil. What's footballification? Well, footballification is where you're born, I suppose, a Grassington United fan, and you're a Grassington United fan for life. Probably as a result of somebody in your family being a Grassington United fan. I've never heard a Grassington United fan. Well, I thought, I better not use a real team, because people start getting all funny about it, don't they? Footballification. So you become a Grassington fan through and through, and you have this almost ride or die attitude to it, don't you? So to even think about another team, or in this case a brand, is like some kind of act of gross misloyalty. And we were referring to camera brands, weren't we, like this? Probably off the back of my aside, saying that I was favouring Canon over Fujifilm once more as my flavour choice when it came to my social photography, and Fuji for just about every other passion. And I couldn't believe it when I said that. It was like, you can't possibly say that. You're one half of the Fuji cast. And that's exactly that's footballification. Andrew says, for me, brands, they're largely irrelevant. I don't really get this shock horror why you were going back to Canon was a problem. Horses for courses, whatever works for you, and whatever you think gives you the most satisfaction. I just looked at an online album of my favourite images, and they split almost 50-50, Fuji Leica with a few Canon shots. If I included older wildlife and bird images, it'll probably be third across the brands. Who cares? Yeah, and I completely concur with that. I love using my Fuji cameras. You know me with my X100. My X Pro 1, you can't peel that off me anymore. And of course, Canons when I want to as well. It does not matter. Best regards from Andrew. Some good points there, Andrew, across a number of subjects there. And so shall we talk then to a Nikon flavour photographer just to balance this, who I just know would not be worried about the fact his wonderful landscape pictures come from a Nikon. This is Alan, and his 5 things that he loves about photography.
Yeah, so the first thing that I love about photography is it provides me with a break from the stresses of the work week. I'm busy all week, and it gives me that break. I mean, I put a fixed appointment in my calendar on Sunday mornings every week.
That's a good idea.
I try and always do it. So I get up really early, sort of 5:30 in the morning on a Sunday, and get out. And I don't even know where I'm going to go until I get in the van, and I sit there and I think, what time is it? And I have a look at the apps to see if what the sunrise is doing, and what the tide times are. Yeah, so I'm making the choice basically whether to go to the beach and take some shots on the beach, or going climbing up a hill and getting some pictures in a woodland or something.
Do you know, that's really important to, and I've not heard anybody say this before, to actually almost make a diarised event that you have to keep to, and that perhaps your family understand is your time too.
Yeah.
Okay, second thing.
It's a sort of creative outlet. I mean, I've got my computer programmer. I do a lot of website work. It's always been my sort of creative outlet. But especially over the COVID sort of lockdown period, working from home, a lot of my time is sort of telling other people what to do, and just in meetings all the time. So it just sort of fills that gap that I'm creating less. I'm still sort of designing sort of systems, but I'm not doing as much myself. So it's quite a nice thing to do.
Third thing.
Okay, so it's a social thing. Yeah. I'm not the most sociable sort of person.
You know, that's incredible. You said that at the start of the week, and I thought sometimes, Alan, and I mean this with the best charity, it's been difficult to stop you.
But yeah, I mean, it's meant I've come out on something like this. Although I go out. Normally, I'm going out on my own, taking photographs. It's nice to sort of meet other people and see what they're doing. They're doing different things to me, but it's really good to sort of just to sort of see that, and you can always learn from what other people are doing.
Right, fourth thing.
Okay, so the fourth thing is that it appeals to my sort of techie side. So being a sort of programmer, I love the gadgets and all that sort of stuff.
We're not supposed to talk about kit, but I know, but it is a very technical. You have a far more technical approach, I think, than certainly somebody like myself does.
Yeah, so I mean, and it's nice. It's sort of nice to have something other than sort of computers to do that with. Yeah, and so I like learning all those sort of technical things. It appeals to me, and there's sort of always an opportunity to learn more. I mean, that's the same with what I do for a living. But I just love learning stuff, you know. And the fifth thing is the exercise it gives me. I'm going out, and often I'm sort of going out, walking up a big hill. And in fact, it was sort of exercise. It was exercise that got me back into photography, because it was sort of going out doing photographing the park runs, and enjoying doing that. And so I've then sort of gone on and sort of got more bits and pieces, and gone out and sort of got to where I am now, which is going out every week and doing it.
Do you keep a step count?
I occasionally look at it, but no, not really.
I'm just intrigued. What's the highest step rate that you've managed on? Because I know you go such a long way for some of your pictures.
I really don't know. Sorry about that.
You should have made a number up then.
Yeah.
40,000, Neil, at least. Maybe 50, 60,000. Alan Beach on the beach, please, Neil, not again. And his 5 things that he loves about photography. I tell you what, when you get a chance, we do this, of course, on the Patron show on a Saturday, but when you get a chance, sit, or if you get a chance, I know how busy you are, sit down, take a few moments over a coffee, probably 2, maybe 3 Garibaldis, could take a while, and write down those things that photography means to you, how it changes your life, what it means, things that it does for you, things that perhaps you do that you weren't quite expecting because of this wonderful thing called photography. We've done a lot of walking this week and a bit of unplanned yomping when the Island Line, the railway I was mentioning, had some technical issues. So we were running instead of riding between stations for some of our pictures. But we also had a chance to sit and talk about the pictures we made during the week around a big farm kitchen table, and you'll see the pictures on the show page tackling those 5 things challenge that I talked about. Next week we are back to normal, if there is such a thing. John Carmichael is my guest in Between Your Letters. He has an incredible story about a commercial airliner flight that led to what some consider as the best totality eclipse picture made from the air, in a commercial airliner, that is. Now, that might sound like you just stick your lens near an aircraft window and click. But there's more to this story, including losing a competition to be on the, well, if you will, the official plane that was trying to capture this. A chance meeting with the bosses of an airliner that you eventually found that you thought, oh, that might actually be in the right place at the right time to make a picture of this totality eclipse across America. And then a captain cleaning the window where you were sat, yes, and then having to request permission to make particular manoeuvres. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And I don't want to spoil it too much for you. It's a terrific story. And John Carmichael, I'm delighted to have him as my guest this week. And just as a small extra there, and it'll probably be another week where we do this story, but Elton John, I think he's got 11. Is it 12 now? I'm sure it's 11. Elton John, of course, the most famous photography collector probably on the planet at the moment. He is a mentor for John. So anyway, next week we'll have John Carmichael's story. It's fantastic. Here's a final mail for the week from Chris Rogalski. We've mentioned Nils Armelinks already. I know, I appreciate that. And the story that Nils had a few weeks ago has touched so many hearts, and it's very obvious why. Here is a photographer who, and I'm sure Nils won't mind me repeating I suppose the crux of the story, that 4.5 years ago he found that he had 5 years, well, he was given 5 years to live by an oncologist. He has stage 4 bowel cancer, and yes, the story that he has about his photography, making pictures in the Lake District, making these incredible photographs of, oh God, what have I just, oh dear, I've come the wrong way here. Sorry Nils, not at this moment. I'm going to be in trouble with Carl. All through the mud here. Yes, he makes these incredible pictures at the tops of these, well, I'm going to call them mountains, on his mountain bike, despite all the difficulties that he has to face through his condition. It was really an incredible story, and it touched a lot of hearts, it really did. And in particular, Chris, Neil, I just wanted to share how moved I was listening to episode 279 featuring Nils Armelinks. There were points where I honestly had tears in my eyes, thinking about how alive Nils is as he talks, and how short his experience in life may be compared to others who don't see the value in it, who spend their time complaining about the things that they don't like and how their boss makes them upset or whatever. That he chooses to make a valiant effort to continually record an existence, if only for his children, just shows how selfless he is. As I've discussed with you and the group once or twice now, he's talking about the group is the wonderful members of the Photography Daily Facebook group, who are so precious. And he's talked about, it's a different health scenario, but, and we've mentioned this on the show, he talked about giving up the booze, and he's come to realise there's so much more to life than he ever imagined. As Chris says, looking back, I can see how much time, how much effort I've wasted in my 20s on booze and boredom and anger and people, being at a job I didn't enjoy. But I now realise that I see the valueless time I spent on the dark side of life as such a negative mindset. And of course we've talked about Chris of late with this move that he's made to become a photographer, and we'll doubtless have conversations about Chris in the future as his career, his new career as a photographer, starts to blossom. What's inspiring, says Chris, is that Nils has, at least on the surface, an acceptance that it's going to happen and there's nothing to stop it. So why get upset? Why get moody? Why let it get to you? To know everything he's done despite the condition is inspiring, to say the least. It's mind-changing, and to know he's around my age, heartbreaking as well. This interview really has changed my view on so many things. Thank you for airing the interview. And I'm going to reach out to Nils as well. I tell you what, Nils would love to hear from you. He'll be delighted. I did actually get a message from Nils over the last few days. I started, some of you may notice that I've started, and it's very much thank you to Andrea and also to Lynn, who are on the Photowalk Retreat this week, enthusing upon me to start Instagram stories. And I was having a conversation with Nils about this. And he did remind me that I promised to go up to the Lake District and cycle up these mountains with him. And cheekily he said, I'll find an e-bike for you. Thanks very much. Probably best. So all the best from Chris. Thank you, Chris. And as I say, I'm sure Nils will be delighted to hear from you. So let's hear one more 5 things, this time from Anna McCarthy. 5 things that Anna loves about photography.
The first thing I love about photography is the creative satisfaction and joy that it gives me. Yeah. Sometimes that's literally a feeling of euphoria when I take a photo and I know when I've taken it that it's on the button, as it were.
So that kind of moment where you think, whoa, that's so much better than I thought it would be, or?
And sometimes I don't really know how I got there, but you often know when you click the shutter that you've got it, and it's a huge feeling of satisfaction and excitement, actually, knowing that you're going to deliver this and hoping that the client will love it.
Do you show that to the client the client always sounds so sort of, what are they? Are they clients? I suppose they are, really.
It depends what you're doing, isn't it? I mean, obviously I'm talking about my working life as a photographer when I go and photograph a family or at a wedding or a portrait. There is this internal thing going on in me which is quite frightening sometimes because you're up against it. But when you know you've got it, there's that rather smug, warm feeling. I've got it, and I've satisfied myself and hopefully the person who the picture is for.
Yeah. Second thing you love about photography?
I think it's a conduit for me to people, but in 2 ways. So I'm very curious about people. I love meeting people. I love finding out about them. So the camera is a way, whether it's a job or whether I'm on the street or wherever I am, it's a way that I can connect with people instantly. And at the same time, it's also a way that I can hide. So if I'm in a social situation, perhaps at a family, a personal event where I've been asked to take pictures, I feel happier because I can be doing something. I don't have to do the small talk. I don't have to just be. I can be creating as I'm at an event.
One of the things I have, coming back to your first point, because I understand that entirely, and I do the same. I think that I use my camera as a kind of, would it be fair to say shield? Maybe it's a shield, but the first thing that you mentioned there just a moment ago, as part of your second thing, without being too confusing, is that you said it's a conduit to people, and you are phenomenally good at connecting with people. I don't even think you're doing it sometimes. It's something that you really naturally do. You're able to go up to people and start conversation, and I wonder whether the camera gives you that superpower.
I think, to be honest, it's because I'm quite normal and I'm very open.
Yeah.
And I'm not shy or awkward in those situations, and it's probably also a learnt thing because I've been a photographer for a long time, so I've photographed lots of people.
What about the third thing?
The third thing I would say is that it's an escape and a therapy and a diversion.
Yeah.
Absolutely, every single time, if I'm not in a good place mentally, if I just go out with it, and every photographer will probably echo this, it diverts me and calms me down, and purely by moving, by focusing, by concentrating, it doesn't matter what I'm photographing. So I think that it's a very good therapeutic thing, which of course comes across all the time in your podcast when you talk to photographers.
You're a very good PR agent. Go on, penultimate thing.
No,
although I think we've come to the fourth or fifth. We're at the limit, aren't we? Have you got one more?
I've got two more.
Two more. That's good.
I
Good.
suppose they're a bit similar. One
Okay.
is simply that I like to be useful with it. So I like the fact that my job is clear cut. I'm commissioned to take photos, and it's up to me to deliver results. And those results are very, very obvious and very absolute. Either they like them or they don't, and hopefully they will like them. But I have a very clear brief every time I do, and I like that, and I like the element of service, whether it's a funeral, whether it's a wedding, whether it's whatever it is. The primary thing is not actually my own personal satisfaction in the pictures, because sometimes I might not particularly think they're amazing pictures, but if I've pleased the client, if I've pleased them, then job done.
Do you know, I think that's so important. I don't hear enough people say that we should be of service, or we can be of service, and being of service is something as a photographer that is really, really important and precious. And I think, and I'll include myself in this actually, that it's very easy to forget that from time to time. Yeah. Very easy. Come on then, the fifth.
I think there's nothing like actually being a working photographer to know that one.
Fifth thing then.
The fifth thing is actually a strange one really, but it's a sort of addiction to the fear, challenge, euphoria thing, which is, I don't go swanning off to jobs feeling confident. I sometimes have a lot of adrenaline, and of course everyone will say that adrenaline is needed to really kind of reach that height of creativity, and I think that is true. So it's addictive, that is addictive, I think.
That's 5 things from Anna. We're out. It's the last night. It's so sad, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh God, that sounded... I'm so pleased we came. It's not like the Radio 1 roadshows used to be. 25,000 people saying, "Get lost, we want Jason Donovan." So yeah, it's the last night and we're out by the fire bowl. And I suppose the first word really needs to go to Andrea, because we didn't hear from her a moment ago with the 5 things. So I'm going to ask you what you think. Well, I tell you what, Andrea, this week, and to be fair, Lynn, I feel like I've been on an Instagram course, because I've learned all about making stories. And if you started seeing stories the last couple of days, that means that they've both been successful. If you haven't, they've failed. But we're going to try and do more stories. Why should I do more stories, Andrea, on Instagram?
It's kind of more like a conversation, really, isn't it? And you're kind of quite good at chatting, I guess.
Well, I hope so.
So, yeah, the stories will kind of be more of a chat with people in your life, about your everyday life.
So you've got a very quite successful Instagram channel, actually. So how important are stories to you, as opposed to just... Because you could just post with these beautiful pictures that you make of flowers and botanical gardens and all, but you don't. You sort of you do utilise the stories, don't you?
Yeah, I think because it's sort of a bit of a more running kind of update for people, maybe a bit behind the scenes. If you see a beautiful view, with stories I just kind of post things on the go if I think people will be interested in them, really. So it's not like my dinner or anything. It's more like a beautiful view that I see, that kind of thing.
Now, you had some really good advice, which we've all listened to, I hope, which was we need to engage more with Instagram. Now, we have a lot of conversations on the programme about about not worrying too much about engagement, posting for the fun of it, but you're saying to me that really engagement is important.
Well, it depends on what you're doing it for. I do Instagram because I want to kind of like chat with people, share things with people. So if I'm going to post, I never just post if I'm not there to hang around and have a chat, because then it's not social, is it?
No.
So yeah, I think it's good to kind of carry on the conversation.
Yeah.
The picture is just the start of it, isn't it? And then it's the conversation after this, I think, is more fun.
You live in the most beautiful part of the world, and we've all now seen what you photograph with your flowers and being out in the countryside, and the filming that you've started to do as well. What is it about flowers, botanical photography that floats? I'm trying to get away from this fireball because I feel I'm going to be a light any second. What is it about this whoosh? What is it about flowers and these? And I will put a link, obviously, on the show page today that brings you alive creatively and photographically.
Well, I guess it's just that kind of the stillness in nature, the beauty of nature, and it kind of makes me want to share it, I guess.
Yeah.
As with somebody who's a poet or a writer, have got words to express it, but for me, it's photography.
You started making films, though, haven't you?
Yeah, I think because if you take a picture, if you're out in nature and you just take a picture, then you kind of miss the bee flying in, or you miss the kind of the way the flowers or the ferns are sort of moving in the wind, so you kind of miss quite a lot of that other sensory bits going on and the birds singing. So I found doing a bit of film is quite nice for capturing that.
You're about to tell me off if I'm going to say you're about to start, and you've already been doing it for a year, but you're about to start teaching people in flower photography, aren't you?
Yeah, we've got a couple of courses coming up in partnership with somebody else who is a florist. Yeah.
And how do you teach somebody to photograph flowers?
Well, I think we'll kind of just start off with sort of people being comfortable with their camera, really, and then kind of looking for the beauty, asking themselves why they want to take the photo, and then going from there.
If you heard the noise, by the way, there's always somebody that causes noise, drops things, asks questions at the wrong time. And actually, in the last meal of the what did you do today? Went to the most beautiful Italian restaurant on the Isle of Wight, and you asked to have your food reheated in a microwave, Anna. We'll come back to you in a moment.
Anna.
That was No, did I say it was you? No, it was Anna.
No, but it might have sounded like you.
No, definitely it was Anna. So you were saying before you were rudely interrupted by Anna dropping stuff on the floor. People believe you can teach all sorts of photography, but I would imagine something like nature, something like flowers, there must be something more emotionally attached to it than just teaching somebody to snap a flower.
Yeah, I think whatever you photograph, the key to getting a good photograph is the fact that you really love the subject. So if you're really into nature, then I think when you tune into it, it's much easier to get a nice photograph, and that could be people photography, landscapes, whatever. So I think that's the first starting point.
We talk a lot about mental health here, but the sort of the lovely quiet of making photographs. I would imagine actually being out photographing nature and flowers is about the ultimate you can get in that, isn't it?
Yeah, really relaxing and outside, and really, really nice.
Well, other people that have been here this week include my friend Lynn. I feel you've been with us since the start of this adventure, and you live in the most beautiful part of the world. And I said that earlier on in the podcast. I'm not expecting you to say for one moment that the Isle of Wight lives up to the... Oh, my goodness. So I'm trying to do something poetic here, and now Anna has come out bearing bottles of wine. I am doing this sober, I'd like you to know. Includes my friend Lynn, who lives in the most beautiful part of the world. I'm not going to expect you for one moment to compare the Highlands to the Isle of Wight, but what do you think? What do you think of the place?
Load of rubbish.
Don't say that. There's Isle of Wightians listening. They'll be angry with the grockles. Have you learned anything this week that you can take away? Something that you've done differently this week that you hadn't done before?
Yes, photographing strangers this week has been a relatively new experience for me, but actually the people here on the Isle of Wight are very laid back.
Yeah, they make it actually much easier, don't they? Because they almost invite you over.
Yes, I mean, I've had some wonderful conversations with people, and they've all been extremely friendly, and every person that I asked if I could take their portrait agreed.
Yeah.
So it was a win-win situation.
It absolutely was, yeah. Somebody who's not afraid to approach strangers is our Paul. You've essentially made friends with half of the island's population this week.
It feels like it, doesn't it? Yes. I mean, it's true, as Lynn said, the people seem quite laid back here, very friendly, very open for conversation, and very open to be photographed. So I feel we didn't really have to work too hard to engage with people and bring something out of their personality photographically.
He's on the web page today, the show page today, which you have to go and see. But what was his name? What was the chap's name that... Smythe, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, Smythe was a fantastic character. I just saw him walking up the road towards the Greasy Spoon we'd just come out of. Yeah. And we engaged together straight away, and he was telling me about his life in Manchester and Sheffield and the hubbub of city life compared with the quiet island life he now leads. And offered to take me for a pint, didn't he?
You let him down, actually. You were supposed to be there tonight. I think he's sent people out to look for you. He's not going to forgive you.
He probably has.
Yeah. Oh, is he round the corner? Yeah, it's like one of those programmes. Alan, have you enjoyed yourself this week? Because at times it's been challenging in that we've said go and speak to strangers where you're much happier, really, photographing the sea.
Yeah, I have enjoyed myself. Good. Yeah, it's been good, and it's been good to sort of meet all you guys and get to know you.
I said to Alan earlier when he said, I don't speak much, I said, what are you joking? Well, at the meals you've been the one speaking the most.
As soon as you put that in front of me, that's when
Must be it, yeah. Oh dear. Anna. Oh, what a nightmare it's been to have you along on this thing.
Apologies, I won't come again.
She brought her firebowl. I had to ask the people next door, do you mind? My friend's a bit of a pyrotechnic. Is that no, not pyrotechnic. What are they called? Pyromaniac, that's it. Yeah, one of the two.
But look, it's lovely.
It is lovely.
It's lovely. I've always found it incredibly hard to photograph this at weddings, these firebowls, when they're going. But this is now really, really looking good, isn't it?
Well, there's six photographers here. Has anybody got a picture of this firebowl? No, nobody. Pardon?
I'm waiting for someone to show me how to do it. But it's been absolutely. It's been lovely, and I think that the Isle of Wight people, it's been signalled to me the end of this horrible COVID time, and there just seem to be people starting to behave normally in as much as just as soon as we got on the ferry to come out, there was a young couple who he had asked his girlfriend to arrive at Portsmouth ferry, and he took her for a weekend to the Isle of Wight, and there was just that feeling, even though it's February, of coming out from the dark into the light.
That was funny, actually, because I think they must have been a bit worried about you after a couple of days, because everywhere we went, look, I mean, it's not the biggest island, but it's also not the smallest place, but you kept bumping into them.
No, it was extraordinary, because I think our first thing we had to do here was to go out on our own, just for an hour or so. And I opted to go as close as possible to where we were staying, and I ended up at this little the Isle of Wight railway, and I was very happy there, just quietly taking pictures with no aim or reason, just to be with my camera, my new Canon R6, which I'm getting to grips with. And there they were again. So I think they thought I was a bit of a stalker. Yeah. But they were having a falconry lesson. Yeah. But then you also met them again.
I did. Yeah, I couldn't believe we met them at the monastery, which was the weirdest place to meet them. But well, look, I hope you've all had a good time. I've had an absolute ball, and I've got to reach for my clipboard here and illuminate it by fire without it going up. Oh yeah. Yes, next week, just so I remember, John Carmichael is on the show, the man that shot the eclipse at 39,000 feet from an airliner of all places. But I want to close this week. We've got to have a piece of music that's probably makes you seem like you're 35 years behind, because life on this island can be, not always, because we have had a few running missions between trains, but most of the time it seems to be quite a slow space. So I'm going to end with a song by Ella Daniel that I think sums up perfectly the pace of, hopefully the retreat. This one is called Make This Love Last, and we'll be back next week in much warmer places. But actually it's quite nice by the fire, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
If you get close enough.
If you get close enough, absolutely. Put another photographer on the fire, would you? Let's get a bit warm. Let's burn a Nikon.
How very daring.
Let's make this love last till Valentine's. Let's spend this night together. Let this fire burn inside our hearts. Let us soak in all the pleasure. Now that the rain is slowly pitter-patting, we are lost inside our lover's nest. We don't need the world, we just need us. What if we'd stay like this forever? These wine-colored days, summer is gone. Deep cold velvet nights when we are one. All come together now, soon the sun will melt this love. We could part and never look back. Life will shortly have us falling flat. By the springtime we'll be strangers. These wine-colored days, summer is gone. Deep cold velvet nights when we are one. All comes together now, let's let this love last till Valentine's. Who knows, it might just last forever. We don't need the world, we just need us. I wish we'd stay like this together. We don't need the world,